Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Robert Friars. I'm the CEO of a technology company from Cambridge in the UK called Spotter, and I'm going to be presenting a short review of a project that we conducted in Qatar in 2024. It was the project that led to us winning the Khalifa Award last year, and with the kind permission of the government of Qatar, I've been given permission to share the details of that project with you now today. So we were deploying smart monitoring systems, early warning systems for insect pests in multiple farms around Qatar. And you can see on the left-hand side here one of our smart monitors. I'm going to explain briefly how they work, what they do, and the results that we got throughout this program. Before I do, though, I want to extend our thanks to the early warning municipalities for QRDI, who were the sponsors of this project, multiple farms with their kind permission around sharing some of the data. And you can see on the left-hand side here one of our smart monitors. So just to explain briefly how they work, what they do, and the results that we got subject of this program. Before I do, though, I want to extend our thanks to the Ministry of Municipalities. We do that in a wide variety of different applications. So my company has kind permission. I'm sharing some of the data countries now. This was our first project in red palm weevil, having previously just to explain the same technology in things like forestry system does. That was the subject of this study. But for red palm weevil, it was completely AI systems. So for real-time monitoring of insects, an integrated pest management. We do that in a wide variety of different applications. And so my localization, identifying where different countries now. This was our first project in red palm weevil, the right place at the right time. Deployed this same technology. We developed an innovative new test for identifying. But for red palm weevil, it was completely new. Whether a tree is infested in a way that nobody has ever done before. An integrated pest management chemical sampling of the tree detection, very different to the localization, identifying where the pests existed previously, steering field and then combining that into the right place at the right time. So actually, a lot of the vision, innovative, the new test for identifying, building towards identifying. Actually, we have a lot of this already, whether a tree is infested in a way that nobody has ever done before, using a chemical sampling of the tree. This study was to do an end-to-end either visual or acoustic that entire system existed previously, so not just little pieces of it, and then combining that into an integrated data platform. So actually, a lot of the vision. The consortium for red palm weevil. We were looking at building towards three main objectives. Actually, we have a lot of this already. So the first was to demonstrate the efficacy of the AI system that we use to identify red palm weevil. This study was to do an is it effective at telling evaluation of that entire system is a red palm weevil or not just little pieces of it, but the entire correctly identify those. That's really important because often you can end up with situations where we were looking at trapping and three main objectives. It has to identify the species correctly. So the first was to demonstrate the efficacy of the AI system that we use to identify accurately and repeatedly. Is it effective at telling whether the thing that we see in every weevil or another species can we particularly correctly identify those? That's really important. Then the second was to look at a variety of situations where if you're using trapping and we compared acoustic, it has to identify the species correctly to avoid false positives. I'm going to summarize the results of treatments of those here. Cost. The acoustic system have to be able to accurately and repeatedly report the population before. That's something we see in every application we do, particularly key for acoustic sensors. The chemical then the second was to look at a variety of technologies for identifying infected trees. So we compared acoustic, chemical and visual methods. I'm going to summarize the results of some of those here. The acoustic systems, of course, have been studied very thoroughly in the sector before. And then many of the people involved in this industry have tried a variety of different acoustic sensors. The chemical sensing is something new that's never been done before. So my science team from Cambridge in the UK, and collaborating with the University of Warwick, have developed a completely new approach to doing that by taking a sample from the tree. So on the bottom left here, there's part of this cycle where and then finally we wanted to demonstrate that there is a clear path from technologies demonstrated here to a system that can operate at national scale and allow real-time control of red palm weevil programs, because that's something that's critically missing at the moment, is the speed of response and knowing whether your treatments have been effective. So on the bottom left here, there's part of this cycle where after you've identified which trees need treating, you treat, and then you continue monitoring to know whether you've been successful is really, really important. Because at the moment, that's not done effectively in the GCC. We identify a problem, we treat it. So in this presentation, I'm going to summarize what we need to shift to is a world where we identify the problem, we treat it, and then we check and go back if it hasn't worked. The second close that how that is presented. That's been a missing piece of the puzzle for integrated pest management. Is So the way good integrated pest management works, immediately see which farms hasn't been possible really in red palm drill down, but it is now. Which parts of which farms, if you're looking at the mobile phone there.
So in this presentation, I'm going to summarize 3 areas that we looked at in particular. So the first was the performance of our AI systems in our smart monitors. The second then is how that is presented to the user as a data layer in a console. This is a technology that's now been deployed to about 30,000 monitoring points around the world for a variety of different insect pests. In this particular case, we're using a pretty common RPW trap. The outside of it, you would think it's nothing smart. Inside, there is some clever technology. Inside, there is an image recognition system and an AI algorithm that is able to identify the species of what goes inside it. And we, as a business, focus very, very strongly on these systems being affordable and easy to use. So these devices do not require any setup from customers. You put them in a field and you forget about them. They run for many months without anyone having to service them. We use the similar non-food lures, so it's ethanol, it's a dry trap essentially, caramone and pheromone, but not water. So that means that we can go for many, many months without having to service it. We have a system inside to dispense those consistently. So demonstrating that in the harsh conditions of the Gulf, in extreme temperatures, these systems were out running through July and August, the hottest parts of the year, and still were functioning effectively. Again, a world first. Nobody had demonstrated those before. Thank you. That's much better. And then these devices, once they've identified a species, they then transmit that result up to our servers. The servers are located in the country. They're under the control of the government. They own the data. It's not going to us. It's not going outside the country. It's not going outside the region. So the data security is very important there. And it's then presented on the console that you saw a moment ago. And all of this is happening in an automated way. And a speed of response is a really key factor there, which I'm going to talk about more in a second. But first of all, let's just quickly assess the accuracy. So on the left here, the country, it's not outside the region. So the data security is very important there. And it's then presented on the console that you saw a moment ago. And all of this is happening in an automated way. And a speed of response is a really key factor there, which I'm going to talk about more in a second. But first of all, let's just quickly assess the accuracy. So on the left here, you can see a variety of images that we've picked out, just a random sample of images that we picked out. We detected thousands and thousands and thousands of insects during this deployment. We got tens of thousands of images. Our AI system is automatically looking at these. No human has to look at these. I only brought them up so you can see what's going on inside these. They stay inside the device, and then it sends a report of, I've seen 3 red palm weevil, 2 rhinoceros beetles, whatever else it might be in there. A longhorn beetle. For those of you familiar with AI systems, the key one, of course, in most cases is red palm weevil. So we were assessing the accuracy of these algorithms. We have AI algorithms that we've developed for a wide variety of insect pests. We needed to demonstrate them in red palm weevil because that hadn't been done before. And I'm very pleased to say that the accuracy of this was extremely high. So for those of you familiar with AI systems, you'll know that the key parameters are precision and recall, which effectively correlate to the rate of false positives and the rate of false negatives. And both of those are extremely low. So less than 1% of the time are we saying that there's something in the red palm weevil when it actually was not, and only 4% of the time is there something in the red palm weevil that we're not reporting. So this is comparably good to a human inspector. In fact, better than most human inspectors, because of course the comparison point here is a bucket trap, where the insects may have sat in that liquid for 2 or 3 weeks before anyone sees it. Often they're unrecognizable. Often things will have come in, a lizard might have come in and eaten them. So the inaccuracy rate of bucket traps is actually worse than this, whereas we're seeing them and reporting them within seconds. I showed you the console device, so it's real time. So this accuracy is extremely good, and it allows you to have an accurate measurement of the population in the vicinity of the pod in real time. And again, that's never been demonstrated before at anything like this scale. The other main thing that we were assessing with respect to the console, I showed you the console a moment ago with the map and showing the intensity of activity in different areas, is how quickly can we bring that data? At the moment, most systems, most programs in the GCC rely on manual inspection, and then perhaps collecting data from bucket traps over the course of several weeks, and then a decision to take that will be sent to treat. That treatment might then come a few weeks later. So the whole process can be many weeks or even months from when a weevil actually arrives, which is the threat of new infestation, to a treatment being identified and done. And the key value that a digital system like us brings is condensing that down into a very short amount of time and responding immediately, not weeks later. So we were demonstrating that actually within this, when we detected a red palm weevil, the program manager, the farm manager, the regional office from the ministry, they get that information in minutes. So they might not react in minutes, but the information is there available to them. So every morning when they're waking up to dispatch their field teams, it's up to that cycle that I showed you at the beginning. After a treatment, if the treatment is not effective because perhaps the pest has become resistant, or perhaps you treated the wrong tree because you didn't realise there was another one worse, okay, I'll send my teams to the right place. That's one of the key value points. And then, of course, because we're detecting this so quickly, it means that after a treatment, back to that cycle that I showed you at the beginning, quick responses, after a treatment, if the treatment is not effective because perhaps the pest has become resistant, or perhaps you treated the wrong tree because you didn't realise there was another one that was infected, if the population doesn't drop, you know straight away, you know within a day or so, rather than months later, because you're getting the data in real time. So that again allows closed loop, quick responses, quick changes to the protocol if the method of treatment isn't working. It allows researchers to quickly identify whether new techniques, if we want to use a nematode spray, will how effective is it. Let's track it and see the actual data. It makes it much easier to do those sort of studies as well.
Our technology, but we were the first ones to bring it to use in.
And then the third point, the completely new bit of technology that has never been assessed before for red palm weevil was this chemical sensing. So this is a process that was developed originally by the US Department of Agriculture to detect emerald ash borer gas, and then you analyse the chemicals in that. And there are certain stress indicators for the tree, and there are also certain chemicals that are indicators of red palm weevil presence. So we identified a family of 8 chemical species and injection, but instead you then suck out a sample of the gas. And this can be done in a portable device that you put up to the tree. You take a sample of the gas and then you analyse the chemicals in that. And there are certain stress indicators for the tree, and there are also certain chemicals that are indicators of red palm weevil presence. So we identified a family of 8 chemical species that together were clearly strongly correlated with red palm weevil infestation, and not general tree stress. This is one of the challenges that's often faced with, for example, satellite imaging, is you'll see that a tree is stressed, but you don't know whether it's drought, whether it's palm weevil, whether it's the lack of nutrients in the soil, what it might be. In this case, these were very, very specifically focused on the presence of red palm weevil. This is still an early technology. It needs further development. We will be bringing it to the market as a completed product over the next couple of years, perhaps in collaboration with some of the other projects here. But as a first indicator, this is extremely encouraging because it opens up the idea of a definitive test that you can do at the base of the tree at a comfortable working height that will be equally effective wherever they are in the tree, because these chemicals are spread throughout the tree by the nature of the xylem and the phloem in the tree. So with us on this, we'd welcome that as well. So just to conclude, really, the key economic insight that the ministry in Qatar had, and then I think other programs in the region are seeing as well, is that closing the cycle time, reducing the time from infestation to response, and we heard it earlier today, the focus on early warning, early detection, early treatment, is the thing that is going to make a big difference to the fight against red palm weevil. And we don't have every part of that solution, but we have what we believe is an important part of that solution, which is the early detection part, and then the data platform that means the information gets shared to the right people at the right time, which at the moment is missing. The data is always fragmented around multiple different systems. Farms don't get the data back to the government doesn't necessarily get it to the right place and the right people to organise the treatment. The contractors are doing things off by themselves. It's broken up. Having a single dashboard where everybody who needs to know the information, with the appropriate security clearance, can see in real time, okay, I need to go to this farm today because that's where the problem is transformative. And it hasn't existed before, but it does now. One of the things that we've actually had as part of this consortium discussions with is combining this sort of technology with tree level sensing. there is a very powerful approach, which is instead of saying you have to put a sensor on every tree, and then you need tens of millions of sensors to cover, the UAE, for example. Actually, what if you were to put out smart monitors, pods? They cover 1 hectare. They're very affordable because you don't need that many of them. It's less than you currently have for mass trapping. And then use that to direct where you send the tree sensors. So you have a fleet of tree sensors, and you move them to the farms that have the highest level. And then 1 day later, 2 days later, you know which trees to treat, and you can move them onto the next farm. So you get the benefit of the individual tree level detection technology without the price tag. And that combination is really, really powerful. So we're looking forward to working with some of the acoustic sensors companies or the chemical sensing approach to integrate that into the platform as a complete system. Because it's only by completing the IPM loop. Everybody in Red Palm Weevil that I meet talks about IPM, and the principle of integrated pest management, where you have a closed loop of feedback and you know whether your treatments are being effective. I haven't yet seen in the region that being done in practice yet, but it's within reach. We can start doing this the way that really successful programs have done this in the past for other pests. And in fact, I'll be giving a talk later on this afternoon about what we can learn from some of the really successful programs in the USA, for example, where they have successfully eradicated really challenging insect pests. And the way they did that, we've collaborated with them on many occasions. So if you'd like to come and discuss that a little bit more, then that'll be at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. But closing that loop is the key thing that is missing in the management of red palm weevil. We have chemicals that work. We have detection methods. Even the old-fashioned visual inspection is effective if you're in the right place at the right time to do it. But you have to know. Being on a farm on the other side of the town or a different part of a province makes it very difficult. So the real-time data is the key enabler of a step change in the way RPW is managed. And that's what we were demonstrating with Qatar, and I'm very pleased with the results that we got in here, and we look forward to rolling it out further over the coming years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Robert. Well, actually, when you're talking about, I'm just thinking, considering the change in the weather, is that going to be a factor to affect whole synchronization of the process, or no?
So whether you're wondering whether, for example, perhaps we'll just give them a moment to fix the microphone. Is anyone able to fix that feedback, please? Oh, perfect, thank you. So yes, I think your question, there's 2 parts of weather that make there's within a day, and actually we were able to show exactly when we saw arrivals in our pod, because we know within seconds, we have exact timestamps for every single detection. So we're able to see, for example, a lot of the things that people previously thought that the red palm weevil activity was often at dawn and dusk. Turns out that isn't true. They go and find traps in the middle of the day because they're looking for shade, and we were able to see that. But I guess your question is also perhaps around seasonal variations as well. And yes, absolutely, we see exactly the patterns that people in the literature have been reporting over time of peaks in May and then a quieter period in the summer. That doesn't necessarily mean that the red palm weevil population is different, it's just that they're less active. So what we are actually representing when we catch an adult is the population activity. It's a level of activity, and that's important because an active adult population is your threat of new infestation. So we're reporting essentially a threat index of how likely you are to have new trees having eggs laid in them. We're not saying that there are 2 colonies or 10 colonies in this area. You need the tree sensors for that. That's not the bit that we do. But what we can say is that these areas are high risk or low risk. You're absolutely right that the seasonal variation matters, and one of the things that we'll do is build into our AI forecasting models of populations that seasonal variation, and it's not the same in every country, for example. So in Qatar, where it's much more humid, that we saw different parameters than when we trialed this same system in El Ain, for example. It's quite different there, the seasonal patterns. So all of that needs to feed into, along with weather data, the AI models that you're using for prediction. Yes. Does that answer your question? Please.
Okay, please, if you have a question.
very happy to do that. So first of all, the outcome. When systems like this are used, so across the board, when we deploy systems like this, within a year, we halve the pest population. So that's the value, that's the benefit side. I think we all know that a mature date palm is worth several $1,000s. So saving one or two of those justifies a little bit of spend. The question is, what does one of these cost? The very quick answer is per tree, it's less than $1 per tree per year. So it's very, very affordable compared to, for example, putting sensors on every single tree. Yes. So we as a company don't directly do the treatment. We advise treatments and we give feedback on the efficacy of treatments, but we don't recommend a particular, we don't say you should use this injection or this biocontrol. That's because, of course, as you say, the experts in that country are the best placed people to know that. But what we can do is if you're trialing a new insecticide, you log that in the console and say, I previously was using this and now I'm trying this. And we can say, well, actually, when you tried it on these 2 hectares, the population dropped by more or less than the old one, and give you some advice on whether it's a good idea to move or not and help you do those checks.
Other questions? Okay. Do we have anybody online? Yes. Okay. Well, I don't know what's wrong with this, but thank you so much, Robert.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. للأسف ما جاش. لا دكتور علي ما جاش. لا ما جاش مش موجود. ما هو الوحيد الأونلاين اللي ما دخلش من
Okay. Is Dr. Abdul Rauf around? Dr. Muhammad Kamal is not here too.